Sarah David. So today, guys, we'll be reading Shadow House. Because it is officially October, obviously, it's like the 10th of October. That was the 13th. So, figured I could read my favorite Halloween-related stories, and that would be this one. Not because it takes place on Halloween or anywhere near it, but because it's creepy. Like, literally, it says, knock knock, who's dead, so tells you it right there. And then this opens up to her, which I always thought was really cool. Okay. So, I did read the first chapter of this book in another video, so if you want to hear the first chapter, you can go, watch that one. And then, if you want to get this, it's just a Scholastic book. It's by Dan Koblocki, just in case you want to just, like, read it for yourself. Alright, so we're on chapter 2. Marcus Geller heard music that no one else seemed to notice. Music emanating from inside a nearby room that only he was aware of. There was no way to fight this music. No way to ignore it, so whenever he could, Marcus tried to play along. Marcus had just sat down on the stool in the corner of the dining room, hugging the cello between his knees and raising the bow, when his mother called out to him, "Marcus, would you come up here, please?" Her voice sounded thin and far away. And he knew that she'd parked herself at her computer in the bedroom upstairs, her usual spot for hiding from the real world. Marcus felt a knobby object rise up on his I can't say that word. Esophagus. That's what it is. He hadn't even begun practicing yet today, and already his mom was preparing to stop him. He squeezed his hands into fists and then released them slowly before answering. "Can you give me a minute?" Then he drew the bow across the strings, filling the room with a deep, resonant hum that drowned out all of his worries as well as his mother's reply. I have a canker sore on the inside of my lip, so if I read weird or talk weird, that is why, because I am in pain from just talking. It's very annoying. Okay. Practicing at home had always been difficult. Finding privacy when you have 3 older siblings living under the same roof is akin to discovering a unicorn sleeping under your bed. That is true. But recently the problem had been even more complicated. Marcus's music seemed to be affecting his mother in an unusual way. His mother's younger brother, Shane, had also played the cello. According to everyone in the family, he'd been really, really good at it. He'd had a bright future as a musician, but then something horrible happened. Marcus didn't know the details of Shane's death. Nobody talked about that part of the story. All he knew was that Shane had been 12 years old when he died, the same age as Marcus now. Maybe it was because of the age thing, or maybe it was because Marcus was getting good at the cello. Whatever the case, it was freaking his mother out, and she was taking it out on him, which wasn't fair. It wasn't like Marcus could stop playing. If he did, he'd be overwhelmed by all the music that no one else seemed to hear. To Marcus, the sounds of the strings and the brass and the reeds were so bright and vibrant, the rhythm so wild and wicked. He couldn't believe that he was alone in his experience of it. And as a young child, he'd spoken incessantly about it, humming the melodies aloud so people would believe him. Eventually, his parents took him to see a doctor who suggested medication to stop the hallucinations. Afterward, Marcus realized that maybe the music should become a secret instead. He didn't want it to end, even if it was all in his head. This was around the time he'd really finally begun to pick up whatever instrument was available from the music classroom at school, and from his uncle's old collection at home to try and mimic the gorgeous melodies constantly floating around him. I had to roll up my sleeve. It was a perfect transition. Stop talking about the music and start making it. This change alleviated his parents' fear. but it also invited attention from teachers and other adults who were fascinated by Marcus's sudden talent. Though Marcus liked this attention, he wasn't sure he deserved it. Part of him felt like a fake. It wasn't as though he was inventing the compositions himself. They were coming to him from somewhere beyond this world. Marcus. He jerked the bow away from the strings and then opened his eyes. His mother was standing in the dining room doorway, clutching a piece of paper. Marcus hadn't realized how lost he'd gotten in the music, nor how peaceful the afternoon had become. "Sorry, Mom," he said. "I was distracted." To his surprise, she smiled. "It's okay." She held out the piece of paper to him. "I just got this message. Figured it was easier to print it out and bring it down to you." "What is it?" "Read it and find out." "Dear Mrs. Geller, my name is L. Delphinium, and I'm the director of the Larkspur Academy for the Performing Arts in New York State. I work with several professional scouts around the world, and when one of them attended your son's recent recital at the Oberlin campus in Ohio, she was overcome by the power of his performance. We would love it if Marcus came to study with us. At Larkspur, Marcus will have access to the most accomplished visiting faculty from New York City's best companies. We have attached a file that includes our brochure with additional information about our music program and what we stand for. We realize it is a little late in the season for an invitation such as this. However, it is our guiding principle that we seek out the most promising young talent, and we would be remiss if we did not at least try. With a student like Marcus, we would be willing to cover all tuition, board, and any travel expenses. It would cost you nothing. Please let us know at your earliest convenience. Best regards, L. Delphinium, Director, Larkspur Academy. Is this a joke? Marcus asked. I can't imagine so. It's insane. There was a scout at the Oberlin recital? You're a talented kid, Marcus, she said. Don't act so surprised. And you wouldn't mind if I went? I'd be delighted if you went. She folded her arms and grinned. She looked a little too delighted. Before he could answer, a blast of noise resounded in Marcus's ears, a cacophony filled with instruments, too many to name. This wasn't like any music he'd ever heard before. It was more like a scream. Marcus flinched, and then glancing at his mother, tried to disguise his shock as wide-eyed excitement. She didn't hear it at all. Okay, so my other camera cut out, so I'm sorry if it's hard to hear me. Also, there's something going on with my ear, and I don't know what it is. So I don't know why my other camera cut out. Usually I can film for at least over 15 minutes without it cutting out like that. So I don't know what happened. So it's kind of weirding me out. Maybe I need to. I like to put fabric on my lamp when it's too bright for me. So that was the end of that chapter. It was a little bit of a shorter chapter. I'm sorry. The Poppy one was much longer to read, and I don't think I ever read the end of it, so I apologize. But if you want to read that book, you can probably just go to... Oh my gosh, what is going on with my computer? I'm sorry if you can't hear me. So guys, in the last clip, I was freaking out because... sorry. I was trying to turn off my phone screen. I was freaking out because something was going on with my computer, and the screen was glitching out. On this side of the screen, it was all glitchy. You know how televisions look when they're glitchy and such? Well, it was doing that, so I was like, what the frick is going on? Because my laptop's less than a year old, so it's a pretty brand new laptop, so it's never really glitched out like that before, so I was just kind of really confused as to what was going on. So that's what was going on in the last clip. But no, if you like this video, then give it a thumbs up, because, I mean, that's how you tell if people like your videos or not. And if you want me to do another one of these videos where I read a chapter of this book, or maybe a different book, then I can do that, because it's pretty simple. You just sit down in front of a computer and you read. And if you want to watch more of these videos, I have actually quite a few on my channel. I also read the Brothers Grimm book,
I think I read the Hansel and Gretel one, and then I think I was planning on reading the Snow White one, because the Snow White one's quite different than what the movies and especially like Disney portray. So if you want to watch more of these videos, I have a couple more on my channel, and you can subscribe because I'll probably continue doing them. But yeah, have a good day or night.